All right. Here we are, one last time. Welcome, everyone, to A Businessman's Guide to Almost Everything. I am sitting for the last interview with Rebecca Sutch. Rebecca, would you introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Rebecca Sutch. I'm a freelance writer and editor out of Bellingham. That's pretty much it.
That's cool. So today, I wanted to go over how people enter your industry, how you entered the industry, and maybe some of the things that we can learn from that.
Absolutely.
So, first of all, let's have the easy one. How did you become a freelance writer? How'd this all happen?
Oh, not as easy as you think. Just kidding. So I loved writing in high school. I loved reading, and I thought I would do that. But everyone said, posh, that's unrealistic. You're not going to become an author because that's all you think of when you're young and like writing. And so I said no. And then I went through this 8 years of being stuck and one thing after another with health issues and medical bills to match. Everything just started feeling impossible. I couldn't go to school when other people did. And then about 2 years ago, I started over completely one day. I was like, I can't keep doing this. I need to reset. And part of that was finding my way back to reading. And a friend of mine was like, hey, you read a lot and you have a lot of cool things to say about it. Have you thought about being an editor? And I went to a community college person and asked them about it. And they were like, well, your safe option of education would take you like 4 to 8 years and get you like $2 more an hour. You could go to school online to be a writer, get it done in like max 4 years. And then if you want to go to education because you're not getting the jobs you want, you just get certified to teach. And I was like, who knew that fighting what I wanted to do all along would turn into the most realistic option for me? And I went to school thinking, I'm just going to go into this to be an editor. And then I wound up learning all of these incredible things about different ways to write and different ways to edit. And it was just so fascinating to me. And so I took the risk and I started doing it. And now I get paid to do it.
Oh, there you go. Mm-hmm. Have you found that historically, over the course of your life, you've been an especially entrepreneurial or independently willed person?
Yes and no. It definitely, I've had a lot of things where I was very excited about it and I went for it. And then I just wasn't as excited and I let it go. But I have to say, nothing in my life has ever felt right in the way that writing and editing did immediately once I gave it a real shot. And so I've definitely been willing to put myself out there, but when things fell apart, I shied back really easily. But since doing this, I've been willing to fight so hard for it. And so with writing, editing, anything related to words, absolutely, I will fight.
Can you describe that space where you just intuitively understand that this is where I'm supposed to be? Like, how do you know?
That's a good question. Yeah. It was hard to know because I feel like I fought that feeling. I would feel sure of something, but I would say I didn't to other people. I'd be like, I'm pretty scared about this. And I wasn't. I was like shocked because I've always had a little bit of anxiety and I've been afraid to take risks. But as soon as I started talking about building a portfolio, taking on jobs, and then talking about cutting back work as a nanny because I need to start taking on writing and editing jobs, I wasn't really afraid. I was like, I know financially this doesn't sound like the smartest decision, but I need to start doing this and I need to feel like I'm moving forward and I know it's going to work out. I just know it is because I've never wanted to do something this badly in my life. And so I knew I was headed in the right direction and that fear kind of starts to fall away. It's still there, but it feels much more like excitement. And I think that's how you know when the fear isn't worth taking over the excitement.
When the excitement supersedes.
Yeah.
That's a good way to frame it. And so when you told your family that you're going to become a freelance writer, how did they respond to that?
They were a little confused at first, but they had the spirit. They were here for it. I think especially like my dad has like seen me kind of struggle. Like he had seen me through those 8 years of not knowing what my body could handle and what I can handle and just trying things that just never worked out. I tried to be a CNA to become a nurse, and then I got injured on the job twice doing normal everyday things because I hadn't accepted yet that my muscles don't like doing their job right. And so he had seen me through a lot. And so when he heard me talk about this, he knew pretty immediately that this was something I was going to do. And he was you could hear the relief in his voice. So he didn't hesitate really at all. He didn't know what that meant, but he was like, heck yeah, you're doing it, girl. So very much supportive on his end. And my grandma as well is my number one fan always. So, I had some good support backing me up.
It's a pretty wonderful providential kind of meeting of kind of like the life journey that we're in, the limitations that are placed on us that we don't have choices over, and the intuitive inclinations that we're born with at the same time. You might be limited in some ways. You probably won't ever become a plumber.
Not planning on it.
No, but you know what? The limitations that have been placed onto you have helped guide you to the realization of what you were meant to do, I suppose.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation with a writing friend recently who was talking about one of the series that we both had read. And she was like, one of the things that I kind of hate about it and a lot of books is that it's all about people, like when they have a disabled person, they talk about, oh, but they did the thing anyway. They won anyway.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things to accept is that you're not always going to be able to do the thing anyway. You're not always going to win anyway.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to redirect your entire life because you just can't do that without risking your health. And that's something that's really hard to understand. But I think that was really important of like letting go of that mindset that you can do anything if you set your mind to it. It's like, sure, that's really great in theory, but sometimes you have to let yourself adjust and let life lead you in a different direction. And letting go of all those aspirations that I thought were better, safer, anything like that is literally what wound up getting me to where I'm happiest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I give a hot take?
Absolutely.
So there was a phrase that came into common use or more common use a few years ago, and it was, instead of using terms like disabled, it became differently abled. And I understood why that came about. As someone who came from a family and from a youth that involved a lot of people from disabled backgrounds, I saw what these did to kids. I saw the lives that they could live with the limitations that they were burdened with and the pain that they often endured. And I thought the gall to come to them and to look at that pain and to say, you're differently abled? No. Treat it with the gravity, with the severity, the humility, and with the compassion that it deserves. Do not look at these people and say, oh, you're just different. No, you're hurting. This is a disability. And we can walk through that with passion, with empathy, and we will find something that works for you, whether that is a lifestyle or a career or what have you. But don't ever demean pain into anything other than it.
I think you just worded something that I've struggled with that pretty well, because I am like neither for or against, because in theory, I really do understand like the idea of like, oh, you're saying they can't do things, but they just can do things differently. And that's especially having like an invisible disability. Like it's hard for people to look at me and take it seriously because they're like, oh, you're fine. And it's like, actually, I'm in pain and I can't do any of the things you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
But I look like I don't have that problem. So like differently able does make sense in that way. But it also is like without the title of disabled, a lot of people don't take things seriously, unfortunately. So it's also the other side of like, it took me a long time to say out loud, I am disabled.
Yeah.
Because people acted like I was being dramatic or lying about it. And saying I'm differently abled, people brush off much more simply and they don't take it as seriously because they're like, well, everyone's differently abled. And it's like, that's not the same. I'm disabled. There are things that I cannot do. I can't do them differently. There are things I cannot do. And a lot of things I genuinely can do. It just takes me a lot longer to learn to do it and to do it safely and to get past the anxiety because you grow up being bullied for not being able to do things and not knowing why you can't do them because it's invisible. It took a long time to figure out. So even just getting past the anxiety is really hard. But there are some things I can't do and you're not always going to see that when you look at a person. So no, it's definitely one of those things where I understand both sides and it's just a matter of, I don't know. I don't get to be the person to decide. I get to decide for myself and everyone gets to decide for themselves, how they want to be referred to.
There's almost a weird sense of freedom in that, in the submission to the limitations that have been burdened onto you.
Oh, it was so freeing. And that was really surprising to me. Like you want to fight it and everyone tells you to fight it. Like as if that's so encouraging of like, you just have to push harder and you'll do better. But when you finally realize, like, no, I need to say out loud, I can't do this. I need to be able to ask for help. Everything opens up in a new way. And it's really stressful and it's really hard to do. And it's kind of depressing at first to be like, no, I really can't do that. But it's kind of like we talked about in a previous episode where we talk about how creativity in a limited way is really helpful. Like writing a short story where you only have so many words and you have to write about this lets you open up your creativity in a different way, because I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about checking all these boxes. They're checked for me. I can't do them. So what can I do with what I have, and how can I make the most of it? And when you really start to focus on making the most of what you have and what you can do, it opens a lot of things up for you, and it just changed the way you see things. So when you get to that point, it's really hard and really upsetting at times, but it's also really beautiful.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of similar with that adage that things are not beautiful because they last. Things are not beautiful strictly all the time because they worked out the way that you thought they would. Sometimes there's a beauty in the transformation and in we want to use a little bit more of abstract or esoteric language, but in like the regeneration and the resurrection of something, in the turning of something that was defeated and turning it into something that was triumphant.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's not a very business-like talk, though, is it?
Not really.
No. All right, so let's move on to something that's still super cool. Let's talk about people who are getting into freelancing.
Absolutely.
So, as someone who has entered into the freelance space, you're a little ways into it. I imagine you've learned some of the things not to do.
Oh, yeah. The hard way.
What are some of the things that new freelancers should not do?
Call someone the wrong name. Just kidding. That's a callback. You definitely should not jump into it unprepared. You should not jump into it without speaking to others in the industry first. That is a big recommendation for me. You can only learn so much online, or even through a degree program. You need to talk to people in the industry. Do not be too vague. Clarify your scope. That is essential. You need to understand your scope, and your client needs to understand it as well. And that's any freelancer, not just writing. They need to know what to expect in advance, and you need to stick to it. Do not put too much money into it. Don't put any money into it unless you are sure this is what you're doing. And until you are sure this is what you're doing. Yeah, I think those are my main ones.
Yeah, it's amazing how many wonderful services are out there to help you with your business, and they will take your money regardless of whether or not you're making money yet.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, of course, I have never made that mistake.
Never.
No, I would never.
Oh, I'm positive.
Okay, so inversely then, what are some of the things that people can do to line them up for success as they're getting ready to become a freelancer, whether that's part-time or they're just going full-time straight ahead?
There's so many things you can do. I think education is like a key. I'm not saying college necessarily. You don't technically need a degree to be a freelance writer or editor. You are going to really have trouble finding jobs if you don't have a degree or aren't working towards one at least. But if you can't do that, certificate programs are great. And if you can't do that, there are other online programs you can take. There's even just YouTube if you need to, but LinkedIn Learning is really fantastic. But you have to go beyond just, oh, tell me how to be a freelance writer. Like, you need to find the in-depth nitty-gritty, or else there's so much you're going to miss. I started advertising that I do copy editing before I knew what a style sheet was, and that's an essential part of copy editing. So, like, there's always going to be something you don't know about. So you have to do a lot of educating yourself and taking charge of that education. And you definitely have to network, as we've talked about in previous episodes.
Oh, yeah.
It's essential. It's very important. It's the only way you're really going to make connections to get out there. And that looks different for everybody, but a lot of that's going to be talking to people over phone or face to face. So you really have to be prepared for that. And I highly recommend finding a mentor if you can. I mean, I really recommend the LinkedIn Learning course on mentorship, because I did all this before that and I did pretty well. But there's a lot that you don't realize about the best way to make connections, because you don't want to come up to someone and be like, hey, will you mentor me? Hey, can you tell me everything? You meet them and you have a natural conversation, and then you say, can I buy you a coffee and pick your ear? Like, do you mind? Pick your brain. Gosh, that was the wrong way to say that. Anyway.
Pick your ear is a different activity, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lend an ear, pick your brain, different things. But yeah, you really have to make sure it's a natural and reciprocal too. You should really be asking, is there any way I can support you as well? But yeah, I really recommend finding a mentor and building a relationship, preferably multiple. I have several mentors, But yeah, that was essential for me. I learned so much from mentors that I had no idea I was missing from even doing tons of online trainings outside of my school degree. Like the mentors made that difference and made it so that I was confident enough to go for it.
So you touched on something that I think is interesting with the university and higher education angle. It seems like it's becoming increasingly in vogue to look at university as optional, which is totally fine. Obviously, there are lots of people that will point out that trades are the ways to make lots of money very quick. That's wonderful. At the same time, though, there's always a place for higher education. When it comes to writing, though, is it worth it to go to these expensive facilities where you might live in a dorm, or is like an online college totally sufficient for your needs?
Yeah, so I am fortunate. I go to Full Sail University online, and it's entirely online, asynchronous. That was the only way I really knew for sure I'd be able to go to school because I have to work full time. And it is an incredible program. It's kind of like a technical school for the media industries, essentially. And one of the things I love about that is that they teach a lot of professional development on top of your regular courses, and that is essential in writing. So I think it really varies program to program. Personally, I wouldn't find it worth it to like go to on campus and live in a dorm, things like that. But that's because I have lived a life where I didn't have the convenience of having those opportunities. Everything kind of didn't go traditionally for me and I had to adjust. So that could be different for someone else. It could be worth it. But I think college is definitely worth it to be a freelance writer and editor if you're able to make it work. I don't think you should shut down the idea of doing it if college isn't realistic for you. I thought for 8 years that college was never going to be an option for me, and I'm very fortunate that it became one under a very specific set of circumstances. But if you're able to make it work, I think you should. But at the end of the day, it's all about taking the initiative to educate yourself and educating yourself in more than just writing technique and learning that there's 10 million other things about it that you're going to need to learn. And in school, that's the number one way for you to learn all of it in one place. So it's a difficult question to answer in one specific way. It's definitely variable.
So like, give me a bracket. If I was to go for higher education for writing, what am I probably going to be paying in the range of?
Oh, that's hard. I don't even want to look at my loans right now. I think like 40 to 80 grand, depending on your program entirely.
And that's for like the 4-year or the complete package?
Yeah. So my degree program is technically it's a fast track program. One of the things that I read about and learned very quickly is true about this program is a lot of people get into it because they think, oh, it's going to be easy because it's an online program and you do every class for just a month. It's actually very intense and it's very self-driven. And so it's different. Everything about it is different. So I don't want to say I know how that works at other programs. But for mine, thankfully, it's a lot more that you have to start paying off sooner. But it's pretty well within the range, I'd say, of what you can expect average from a normal university.
Okay.
You just have to pay it sooner because you finish sooner.
Yes. So let's say we take a step down. Someone wants to get into writing, but the university higher education track is not quite within their means just yet. What's the next level of education that they can engage in that's still going to be meaningful?
So especially for editing, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with different writing ones, but editing, there's a lot of certificate programs, which are still technically college. And it's the kind of thing where you can stack certificates. And if you've stacked enough of them, you earn essentially a degree. And they can be really, really helpful. And they're the number one way without going to a university that you're going to actually understand the industry and know the ins and outs and know what tools you need and all of those things that you're not going to find from just learning it elsewhere. So certificate programs can be really great. Something that I've learned and one of my mentors warned me about is that sometimes the certificate isn't necessarily worth it. That's usually if you already have a degree and you're doing it on top of that. But especially if you don't have a degree, a certificate program can be a really incredible option. It just depends.
Oh, that's good to know. So let's say that someone's now looking at, I don't have a whole lot of money. I'm looking at the University of YouTube. How much mileage will they get out of the University of YouTube? Will they ever learn the job?
I think if you're going that route, you absolutely have to rely on finding a mentor. You have to find people in the industry and you need to get to know them, and you need to throw yourself fully, like in the deep end. You have to learn everything in and out through experiencing it and through other people's experiences, because there's so much on YouTube and all these other places where it's like, oh, here's everything you need to know, or here's your one-stop shop. But even if you watch 10 billion one-stop shops, there's always going to be something in another one where you're like, they didn't mention anything about this in any of the others. And it's such a varied industry. Everything is so personalized and specific that you really need to know the ins and outs of it personally. So if you're not going to go to college, if you can't do a certificate, if that's not possible for you, that's not the end of the world. But you need to know that it's going to be a little harder for you and a little more intense to really dive in, because you dedicate a lot of your time to just understanding it and knowing the nuances, especially working with clients.
Interesting. It's a good thing to keep in mind too, just like those expectations of what you'll have to endure. And I think endure is the right word. So when it comes to writers and editors working together, I imagine it's a pretty well-connected little group.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of.
It depends. I mean, people who do content and copywriting, technical writing, things like that, honestly do feel pretty detached from editing, because editing most often is for novels, and that's like an author, which is still a writer. But freelance writers aren't typically writing stories. Sometimes they are, like ghostwriting is a great example of a writer who's getting paid to write a story. But, you know, I work with editors through journalism. It's just kind of different. So the kind of editing I do is typically novels, manuscripts, short stories, things like that. So it's pretty separate. But, you know, it just depends. I mean, if you're an editor in journalism, you work really closely with journalists. So
that's fair. How would you describe the field with respect to how saturated it is? Are there just a lot of people, so you got to kind of budge your way through to kind of get to the front of the line to get the jobs, or it's kind of empty?
Honestly, so it's pretty, I will say it's pretty saturated. But I don't think, I mean, and this could be because I've gotten a lot of local work and I work with very great people, and I've been very fortunate. I could just be lucky with this. But a lot of it honestly really is connections. And so it's kind of the opposite of fighting for it, which you are fighting for it, but you're doing that by putting yourself out there and putting yourself in more positions to find work and through networking, as opposed to like trying to steal work from someone. Like, it really is a community, and the writing community is willing to help out. Like, most people that have the personality to network and be a freelancer and take charge of things, most of them are pretty personable people, and it's pretty easy to make connections. And so if you can find the right people, they'll send you work. If they're too busy, they're booked, they'll send you work happily. If they don't want to take that project on, but they think you might be willing to, they'll send you work. So it really, I don't feel like I'm fighting for it in that I'm fighting other people, but I'm fighting myself, and I'm forcing myself out of my comfort zone in new ways all of the time to try to find work. So yeah, I think it's definitely different for everyone, but absolutely, I feel like I'm fighting for it. Absolutely not do I feel like I'm fighting other people for it.
Gotcha. So we talked about this a little bit before, but you had made mention that whether to niche down or just to take the opportunities that are presented to you, do you find that other writers in your space tend to lean one way or the other?
I think everyone does it differently. Everyone goes about it in different ways. I think the most typical way to get work is to take whatever job you can get at first and to do whatever you can. And that has worked pretty well for me. And it's also very key to just show people you can do a job. Like, if you have nothing on your portfolio or one thing on your portfolio because you only want to write beauty blogs, they probably won't hire you. But if you have 5 articles on something random, or if you have 5 different copywriting gigs, or like other things that are completely unrelated to what you want to do, even technical writing, you've written 5 how-to manuals, they're much more likely to hire you because they know you can do a job. You can be trusted to meet a deadline. You can communicate with someone, and you can have work published and do work that is worth publishing. So at the end of the day, you need work and you need a portfolio, and that's essential. And once you get to a certain degree, people are more likely to hire you. You just kind of slowly hop towards what you want to do and build that portfolio. If you have an opportunity to get into the niche you want, by all means, go for it. But accept that you're probably going to have to start with something you don't quite want. So,
do you think you have an inkling about what your preferred niches will be?
I go back and forth a little bit, I'll be honest. I know developmental editing is a strong preference editing wise. I love developmental editing. If I was just a developmental editor, I'd be happy. But actually, I don't know if that's true. I want to write all the time too. But I really like doing newsletters and blogs and things that have a specific brand and voice, but you have that creative freedom with, because it's not like a press release or something where you're supposed to do it a specific way. Yeah, I don't know. I just really like newsletters and blogs.
No, it's good. Okay, so starting a business, and like that's what freelancing is. It's you have a business, you have overhead that you have to cover, whether that's just taxes or other resources as well. Business can often be seen as a long march. It's not something that's done overnight. Takes weeks, takes years sometimes. And Lord help you, one day you're going to find that you're making enough that you can live comfortably. Happy day. What are the progress markers as a freelance writer / editor that tell you things are getting better? We're on the right track.
Oof. I mean, I still got a few to go, but definitely, I don't know. It's been really important to me to celebrate every tiny little milestone. So I guess I am kind of a good person to ask this, but making your first connection, finding your first mentor are both great places to start. And you have to feel really good about those things because they mean you've put yourself out there. So celebrate that. And then from there on, writing your first thing that gets published is a huge thing, or finding your first client of any kind is incredible. And what a lot of people recommend is start by working for free, which sucks. And in general, don't do that as a writer or editor. But when you're first getting out, you should start with that. So even if you're just doing what I did, where you're reaching out to this guy you met at parties a few times to be like, hey, that thing you're doing, can I write about it? And then you're writing a press release that you think is journalism, but it's actually a press release. You just didn't know that yet. That's writing that gets published. And then next thing you know, someone has something to look at. So every tiny piece of work you do, whether it's published on a tiny little blog by a local store like mine was, or published by a major literary journal, that's something to celebrate. And you have to celebrate every one of those to keep that momentum going. And I think from then, when you start getting work that you really want to do, that's when you start to realize you're getting progress, when you can get picky with your work and you can choose to say no to more work. That's a really good feeling. So even if it kind of sucks to reject someone, you should also be kind of happy about it because you're like, whoa, I'm doing well enough that I can say no to that. And then when you find balance in your life, I mean, I don't have that and most people don't have it entirely. But like when you start realizing, okay, yeah, I can set the computer down now. That's a big deal because I never feel like I can. I feel like I'm forcing myself to, but I always feel behind. And the truth of the matter is, even my mentors last night were saying, oh yeah, we always feel behind. That's just the natural feeling. But when you realize, okay, I am okay putting this aside for a little while, that's something worth feeling really good about too. And that's how you know you're succeeding and you're becoming better at this because you will survive putting the computer down for a while. Yeah, I think those are some key ones for sure.
How do you think the growth of a freelance writing business looks? Do you ever see yourself in the future taking on people underneath you as employees, or do you think that this will always be a you operation?
So I've always loved working with people and I've always done pretty well in leadership positions. So I do, in theory, love the idea of not necessarily running a business. This is hard. But I don't know, like being an editor at a traditional publishing company or something like that. But I definitely would love to be a mentor. I already have some classmates who see that I'm a little more advanced in certain things and they'll reach out to me and I'll do some work for them or I'll help them kind of figure out where they're going and how to get started in things. And that just feels very rewarding to me, which that's another milestone. When people start asking you for advice on things, that's how you know you're doing pretty well. But yeah, it's a really incredible feeling. So at the very least, I definitely know I want to mentor people and help them out. I'm already doing that whenever I can. It's not quite the blind leading the blind, so I know I'm doing well. Yeah, but I don't know. I could see people working under me. I could potentially see myself starting a business, but it would take a lot for me to be willing to do that.
No, that's fair. Well, Rebecca, I think that's our time again.
All right.
Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So, where can the good people find you?
Sutchcreativework.com, Sutch. It's my last name, pun intended. And on there, it has the links to my Instagram and my LinkedIn, as well as my portfolio.
Well, you guys heard it here. Go check her out. Take a look at some of that portfolio. And next time, I think we're going to be bringing in some new guests.
Ooh, exciting.
Oh, yeah, that'd be exciting. We don't know who it's going to be. You will, though. In a week or so, maybe. I haven't scheduled this yet. Stop looking at me. All right. Anyways, this ending has gone on long enough. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.